Good evening and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. My name is Bhante Sudaso and this is our weekly monk chat session, opportunity to ask questions about Buddhism and my opportunity to respond to them. So please type in questions in the comments window and I will answer questions until I run out or the time runs out. So you can go ahead and enter questions and I'll start with homage to the Buddha and then I'll start going through them. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Hello to the people who are joining in online. Hello to Maria, Ryan, Richard, Victoria, Visis, Kauser Friend, Mary, Jody, Bhumika, Yankee, Luisa, Bhavani, Amaranta, and everyone else who's joining in. And I see a few questions so far. So Maria says, I'm trying to be better at being in seclusion. Mostly if I give myself a list of things to do, I will be productive and energetic. But when I complete my work or get tired, I tend to give in to defilements and watch TV or something else that I've told myself beforehand I wouldn't do. How can I maintain determination in seclusion and hold to my commitments? Well, one thing that helps tremendously is go to a monastery and leave your computer at home. Then you just won't have these options for distraction. Sometimes the best way, if you know that you have an addiction to a particular kind of entertainment or distraction, is create conditions where it's simply not accessible to you for an extended period of time. Many devices have a lock mode where you can lock it for a scheduled period of time. So you might see if you have some electronic device that's particularly compelling to you, see if there's a way to lock it for several hours of time so it's simply not an option for you. Another thing which helps if you're not able to go to the extent of locking out a device is just have it somewhere where it's out of sight and where it takes a fair amount of effort for you to get it. So if something is immediately visible to you, then it's a temptation. But if it's somewhere out of sight and where it's not immediately accessible, it takes you a bit of effort to get it out and set it up, then that gives you enough time to have second thoughts about giving in to your temptations. If you actually do have a big TV in your living room or something, get rid of it, ideally. Just remove it from your life entirely, get rid of it, give it away. You don't need it. If you do feel hesitant to give it away, well, ask yourself why you're so attached to it. If you're still not willing to give it away, then store it somewhere. Store it somewhere where it actually takes you a few minutes to set it up each time you want to use it. So that, again, gives you a bit of time to think about what you're doing. Similarly, when you want to devote a period of time to meditation practice and sutta study and chanting and so on, then turn off your computer, pack it up, and store it away where it's not readily at hand. Turn off your phone and store it somewhere far away where it's not readily available to you. So actually making an effort to put these temptations and distractions out of immediate reach, that helps quite a bit. The other thing is to consider, before making a determination, consider what's actually a reasonable determination. So if you're determined to practice seclusion for a period of time, and you're finding that you're never able to make it to the end of the time period you've set, then maybe it's too long for you. So if you set a time period of, say, 4 hours, and you notice that at around the 2-hour mark, you lose your motivation and you give up, well, the next time, make your determination 2 hours. And after you've successfully kept that determination a few times, then maybe bump it up to 2.5 hours. gradually work your way up from there. So if you make too large a commitment right from the beginning, then you're just going to get disheartened. So starting with smaller commitments and gradually increasing them over time tends to be a much more effective approach. And Visa says, how much heads up do you need for retreats? Would it be too late to sign up for an Easter weekend retreat? So Visas, write an email to the monastery email address and or fill out the residency application on the website. That's the way to do these things. We don't have a set amount of advance notice you need to give, but generally at least a couple of days is good. Victoria says, have you ever heard of Williams syndrome? No, I haven't. And Victoria says, it's a genetic, neurological, and physical condition that gives people an incredibly loving, compassionate, and positive demeanor, but also very dangerous cardiovascular issues. Watching interviews with these individuals really makes me feel that they're on a higher frequency of being and would probably be considered holy people in some societies. They sometimes develop depression later in life because most of the world isn't geared for beings in such a friendly and loving manner. Do you think it's good karma to be born into such a life, even with the difficulties they face? I mean, I don't know anything about this Williams syndrome, so I feel hesitant to make any definitive statements about it. I mean, if it has cardiovascular issues and it seems to have a clear physical connection, then that sounds to me more like a health problem. It sounds to me more like a medical condition, medical problem, which might have some positive effects of helping someone be more loving. But having being born with some kind of congenital cardiovascular problems doesn't sound like the result of good karma. That actually sounds like the result of bad karma to me. Or maybe mixed karma, in that if it's both helping the person to be more compassionate and loving, that's a good thing, a result of good karma. But if it's also causing them physical health problems, then that's the result of bad karma. So maybe mixed karma. Yeah, I mean, I'm more inclined to just take it actually as two separate things. So the tendency towards being more loving and compassionate, I would say, is the result of having developed good karma from past lives, and the tendency to have cardiovascular health problems as being the result of bad karma from past lives. Yeah, so I would just divide the syndrome into two separate components, the positive and the negative. Ryan says, I declared no media audio to myself yesterday, sadhu, and allowed me to meditate back to 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening versus no meditation today, mostly Dhamma talks. Okay. Yeah, it's good to give yourself a break from entertainment. Create the opportunity for yourself to do meditation practice. It's a gift you give yourself. Ryan says, so following up on that, he says, are Dharma talks taking away from my meditation? When do we spread our wings and trust our own instincts to just practice what we have learned with the Dhamma? When you're fully enlightened, that's when. So you want to constantly be exposing your mind to the Dhamma, because the truth is that you're constantly exposing your mind to non-Dhamma all the time. So basically, every time you talk with anyone who's unenlightened, every time you look outside your window, every time you hear somebody's car going by on the street, every time you do literally anything whatsoever that's not directly related to Buddhism, then your mind is being infiltrated with non-Dhamma, or often with anti-Dhamma material. So we actually need to make a conscious effort to keep pointing the mind towards the Dhamma. So reading the suttas, listening to Dhamma talks, engaging in Dhamma discussions, contemplating the Dhamma, reflecting on the Dhamma, doing chanting, these are all things which help keep pointing the mind towards the Dhamma, so that the mind doesn't become mixed up in non-Dhamma or anti-Dhamma tendencies. So the time when you spread your wings and trust your own instincts to just practice, the time that happens actually is at stream entry. So prior to stream entry, you cannot trust your own instincts because your instincts are defilements. So your instincts are just your latent defilements expressing themselves as impulses and urges. So you cannot trust those instincts, you cannot trust those impulses until you're at least a stream enterer. So as for our Dhamma talks taking away from your meditation, I would rather say that there are many ways of training the mind. Meditation practice is one way, and Dhamma talks are another way. They're both good, they're both useful, and neither one is a replacement for the other. You need both. You both need Dhamma content being put into your mind, and you also need meditation practice. So ideally, you should be integrating both into your life. There should be both Dhamma information coming in, and there should also be meditation practice. How exactly you balance and intermix those is up to you, but both are important components of a fruitful Buddhist practice. And Bhavani asks, how is Aya Soma? She's good. I mean, she's in Italy right now. I think right now she's on her way to teach some Dhamma programs over the weekend. So she's doing a lot of Dhamma teaching in various places in Italy, and also helping look after her elderly mother. So I do keep in touch with her, and she's doing well. Yeah. Manosar asks, how to overcome negative emotions? Well, I mean, it depends upon what negative emotions you're talking about, and it depends upon why they're arising in the mind. So maybe if you clarify what you mean by negative emotions, then I can give a more specific reply. Amaranta says, I feel I am part of this community. Oh, that's lovely. Yes, Amaranta, you are a cherished member of the online sector of our community, and it would be lovely for you to also be part of our in-person community at some point. So Amaranta says, things are going to be difficult if I try to go to the USA. I'm planning to go to Italy next year. What do you think? Sure, yeah, come visit us in Italy. That's a great idea. Yeah. Maria says, I like your idea of breaking up the commitments into smaller blocks to start. I always just try for 24 to 48 hours, and then yes, I get disheartened when I don't make it to the end. Yeah, do shorter commitments, at least in the beginning. And I was quite serious, and also regularly going and staying in monasteries for short periods of time, even just a few days, can make a huge difference. So that's one reason why here at Empty Cloud, we allow people to come for weekends, so that then someone can live their ordinary nightmarish life on the weekdays, and then on the weekends they can come stay at the monastery. So they can have an opportunity to re-immerse themselves in Dhamma for a couple of days. And a lot of monasteries offer similar opportunities, so look to see what's available to you. Okay, Gregory says, I heard academics describe some meditators having very negative experiences, such as disassociation or hellish experiences. How are such experiences dealt with in the suttas or by teachers? Well, the thing is that it really depends heavily on who the person is, what their traits are, what their practice is like, what their relationship with Buddhism is like, why they're practicing meditation in the first place, what kind of methods they're using, how well they understand Buddhism, if they even are Buddhist. So there's a lot of factors that go into these things. So one of the problems that's been arising lately is that meditation practice is being studied in isolation, and the effects and and such of meditation are being treated as though meditation was like the newest pharmaceutical on the market. Of like, oh, if you take a dose of 30 minutes of meditation, what effect does it have on your mind? It's like, well, I don't care, because that has nothing to do with Buddhism. So that's not how we relate to Buddhism. That's not how we relate to meditation in Buddhism. So, yeah, I mean, of course, some people will have negative experiences during meditation. Yeah, of course. If someone's talking to me about those experiences, well, actually, usually the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, first off, is the person Buddhist? Second, why are they meditating? What are they hoping to get out of it? Third, do they understand the basic principles of Buddhism? Do they understand the place that meditation practice has in Buddhism? Fourth, are they practicing the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path? So I go through things like this. So it is true that in the course of a sincere Buddhist practice, following the complete Noble Eightfold Path with the clear goal of attaining awakening, it is true that sometimes you will have some very unpleasant experiences arising in the mind, sometimes. However, we have the tools for working with that, but those tools make sense within a Buddhist context. They don't make very much sense outside of a Buddhist context. So if someone who's not Buddhist tells me that they're having nightmarish experiences during meditation, I might actually recommend that they stop practicing meditation. I might start asking, why are they practicing meditation in the first place? What do they think this is going to do? And then investigating, why are they having these nightmarish experiences? And usually the answer is going to be because of a relationship with meditation practice that has nothing to do with Buddhism, in which case I'm not the person to talk to about it. Okay, Kristen says, how do you explain form is emptiness, emptiness is form, but with EBT? So first off, that line, it's a translation of the so-called Heart Sutra, which itself is an abbreviation of a paragraph in the middle of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. I think that's the Prajnaparamita in 25,000 lines. Do you remember that one? So 25,000 line? One of those. There's a bunch of Prajnaparamita Sutras that all have basically identical names, except the number of lines changes. So I think that's from the 25,000 line version of the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Anyway, I had tracked it down years ago. I could pull it up again. So the line, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Well, that's from the section where it's going through the 5 khandhas. So that particular paragraph, it's basically going through all of the major doctrinal sets from early Buddhism, by the way, all the major doctrinal sets from early Buddhism, including the 5 khandhas, the 4 Noble Truths, the 12 steps of dependent origination, and some others. And for each one, it says, well, it says this. So form is emptiness, means your body, your physical body is emptiness. And emptiness is your physical body. They're not separate from each other. They're not something different from each other. So the way this is talked about in the early Buddhist texts is primarily through the concept of the asankata dhatu, the element of the unconditioned. So the concept that the element of the unconditioned is something that's pervasive. It's all pervasive. It's everywhere. It's immediately accessible all throughout samsara. It's not separate from samsara. It's not in the sense of being somewhere different or somewhere far away. It's right here. It's just that we don't see it. We're so fixated on the objects appearing in samsara that we don't see the formless that appears beneath it, or behind it, or within it. So we don't see the unconditioned element, even though it's literally everywhere. We just see the objects and shapes and forms that appear on the surface of reality. So the concept of the five khandhas, so body, feeling, perceptions, mental activities, and consciousness, as being not separate from emptiness, is it's basically pointing to the same thing, that these are sankharas, which are coexistent with the asankata, the unconditioned. So these are conditional phenomena which are inseparable from the unconditioned. So it's not that samsara is here and nibbana is over there somewhere. It's not that the conditioned is here and the unconditioned is over there somewhere, but they're inextricably connected. They're absolutely intermixed. It's like two sides of one coin. It's just one coin. You can't say that the head's side of the coin is separate from the tail's side. They're inseparable. And yet the heads and the tails are clearly different, even though they're inseparable. And yet you can't have one without the other. So in the same way, the world of conditional phenomena and the unconditioned element are inseparable. They come together. And the existence of one necessarily implies the existence of the other. So this is basically what the Heart Sutra is saying. It's just saying it in a way which is slightly different from how it's spoken about in the early Buddhist texts. And then it goes through a whole list of things, saying in emptiness there is no five khandhas, there is no six senses, there is no paticca samuppada, and so on. And that's, again, actually exactly in accordance with what we see in the early Buddhist texts. And the asankata dhatu, and the unconditioned element, and the nibbana dhatu, the element of nibbana, there is no body. There is no feeling, there is no perception, there is no mental activity, there is no consciousness, because all of those things are sankharas. Therefore, the asankata dhatu, by definition, contains no sankharas. So it therefore has no body, no feeling, no perception, etc. So the Heart Sutra is basically just a very concise explanation of the asankata dhatu. If you want to put it in EBT terminology, that's what it is. Okay, Moria says, how do you suggest working with the fear of being criticized or judged by others? The level of fear leads to social anxiety and sometimes keeps me from saying and doing what should be said and done. Well, Moria, you should be asking yourself, am I trying to be a morally upright person? Am I trying to cultivate wisdom, compassion, and serenity? Am I trying to practice equanimity, contentment, and patience? If the answer is yes, then you have every right to have sky-high self-esteem. And you can tell yourself, I am a really amazingly good person. This is the Buddha's own recommendation, by the way. I'm not making this up. Reflect on your own good qualities. Actively remind yourself of your own good qualities, your wholesome qualities, your virtues. And even if you think, well, I'm not actually that virtuous of a person, well, do you have the aspiration to be a virtuous person? If so, that's a praiseworthy quality that you should praise yourself for. Maybe you don't even have the aspiration, but you respect and value virtuousness. Well, that's a virtuous quality that you can praise yourself for. Then you don't need to worry about whether or not other people criticize you or judge you. Because if you're like, I know I'm a really good person, then if other people are criticizing you, then that just means that they themselves are either foolish or misguided or evil. So why would their criticism matter? Doesn't matter at all. Or they judge you as being weak or foolish or whatever, well, that judgment is irrelevant because you know that you're a good person. You know that you're at least trying to be a good person. You know that you're trying to develop wisdom and purity. So if other people criticize you and judge you, that just says something about their own problems. And nonetheless, it's still good to evaluate, is the person criticizing me in accordance with Dhamma? If so, can I learn something useful from this? So if someone's saying to you like, oh, Maria, you were a bit too harsh and aggressive when you were talking to that person, that was not very nice, then you stop and think, is this person right? And you realize, oh yes, they're right. I actually was a little bit too harsh. I need to be nicer in the future. I'm going to try to be nicer in the future. That's good. That's a way to use criticism as a way to bolster your Dhamma practice. On the other hand, if someone says, you really weren't harsh enough, you really should be nastier when you talk to people, you can think that criticism is not in accordance with Dhamma. I should not follow that advice. So they might think I'm a bad person because I'm not harsh enough, but that just shows their own foolishness. It doesn't show anything wrong with me. Or people criticize you about mundane things. They're like, you're just not ambitious enough. And it's like, well, okay. So that's not a problem. But they think it's a problem. So I guess for them, it's a problem, but it's not actually a problem for me. Or someone's like, you're just not sufficiently obsessed with pop music. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's true. I'm not. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that, in fact. So you also need to evaluate, is the criticism actually anything whatsoever to do with Dhamma principles? If it's not, then it doesn't matter if other people criticize you, because it's just an expression of their own shallowness or foolishness. In which case, when you receive that kind of criticism, the proper attitude is compassion. Compassion for somebody who holds such erroneous values and even tries to push them on other people. One can only have compassion for somebody in such a flawed state. Yeah, the more you reflect on your own commitment to goodness, the more confident you will be in holding to your principles, whether other people criticize you or not. Thesis says, my practice is going well and my mind has started becoming able to deeply contemplate Dhamma in a way that inspires incredibly uplifting feelings of joy. But this joy seems to condition agitation that inflames discursive thought and breaks the contemplation and reduces the joy. I feel like this might be the PT that leads to tranquility. How could it be stabilized? Relax, that's how. Just relax. When the joy is present, just relax into it and enjoy it. When the joy is not present, well, then just relax and be patient, and it will come whenever it comes. So that's really the way. Relax and be content. Content when the joy is present, content when it's not present, content when it's increasing, content when it's decreasing. So practice relaxed, contented awareness of whatever the current state of mind is. And in this way, gradually over time, the joy will tend to increase and your serenity will increase rather than agitation, and the mind will settle into concentration. Usually when there's agitation that comes with joy, with euphoria, it's because we're attached to it. We're fixated on this pleasure and we're like, yes, this is great. I really like this. Is wonderful. Yes, I'm getting somewhere. This is so great. And then that builds up that agitation in the mind. Whereas if you just relax and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, feels good. Oh, it's going away. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the nature. All things tend to fade. Oh, it's coming back. Oh, that's neat. Mm-hmm. Yep, there it goes again. If you just have that kind of relaxed, easygoing attitude, kind of like easy come, easy go. So not getting too worked up when there's joy, not being bothered when it fades, then ironically, that's actually what leads to a stable, persistent euphoria, a stable, persistent ecstasy in the mind. Gregory says, for a future sutta discussion, it would be good to go over a sutta that covers antidotes to the 5 hindrances. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that will probably show up one of these days. Richard says, I tend to see that respecting others is always greeting them, but I'd like to find new angles to respecting others because I think sometimes I overstress the greetings, that I'm not doing enough in others' aspects. I don't understand. Respectfulness is more about consideration for other people's feelings. There's no specific rule book about how to be respectful, because if somebody made such a rule book, it would be highly specific to a particular place, time, and culture. So respectfulness is actually, it's about paying attention to whoever you're with, and being considerate of their feelings. Trying to relate to them in a way that's not unnecessarily offensive to them. And that requires paying close attention to whoever you're with. It's not about following a rule book of like, if they say this, then reply this. But rather, it's about paying attention, uh, observing their emotions, observing their reactions, observing their responses, and trying to always act and speak in a way which is harmless and non-offensive, unless there's an extremely good Dhamma-based reason. We always try to be acting in a way which is not offensive to others. Okay, Richard says, for the first time since I found Buddhism, a Goenka meditation retreat will take place not only in my country, but in my state. I want to participate, but my parents don't agree with me because it's for 10 days. What could I do? You can sign up and go anyway, of course. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, my parents disapproving of Buddhism never stopped me from doing Buddhist things. Yeah. Okay. Ryan says, are what we call epiphanies have an equivalent in Buddhism? If so, having one on self-views of any significance in our path? What do you mean by epiphany? Do epiphanies, so epiphany like having a sudden eureka moment or a sudden change of view on something. It can happen. Can happen. My experience of Buddhist practice, though, is that it's more like gradual shift over time caused by immersion. So it's more like when something soaks in over a long period of time, rather than about like one day you're just like, aha, wow. And sometimes that happens, but usually no. No, usually it's more like you look at your mind and you're like, wow, my mind is so much calmer and happier than it was 10 years ago. You look at the mind and you're like, wow, I'm actually seeing everything as impermanent. Whereas 10 years ago, that was just an idea. So it's more like a gradual shift over time, rather than like a sudden aha kind of moment. So those sudden shifts do sometimes happen, but they're rare. And it's not something I recommend deliberately seeking out or trying to produce. Okay. Nirmala says, which defilement is the most difficult one to overcome? Well, Nirmala, this is different for every person because every person has their own particular personality, their own particular tendencies. So each person will tend to have their own particular challenges. We do sometimes broadly talk about 3 personality types. So the greed type, someone whose main challenging defilement is desire. The hate type, whose main challenging defilement is aversion. And the delusion type, whose main challenging defilement is delusion. So we do sometimes talk in that way. And that can be a useful way of relating to it, is then look at your own mind and try to figure out which of these 3 is your main issue. And then focus on reducing that main issue. But it can also change over time as your practice goes on over the course of years. Then your dominant defilement might diminish and another one becomes more prominent. Okay, and Visa says, is noticing the conditional relationship between different parts of experience a part of Satipatthana? I feel like sometimes I do this discursively, which is pretty hindering. But when awareness is broad and bright, the causal relationships are just known without needing to think or consider it. Awareness of causality, awareness of causal relationships. Properly speaking, I would put probably under Dhamma Vicaya in the 7 factors of awakening. Investigation of Dhamma, exploration of Dhamma, observation of Dhamma principles. Would I put it under Satipatthana? I mean, it has some place under the 4th Satipatthana, I suppose. Dhammanupassana can fit in there to some degree. But rather, I would say that Satipatthana forms the basis for being able to observe conditional relationships. Because you need to have strong, clear mindfulness in order to be able to observe conditional relationships. So I would more say that Satipatthana is a precondition for noticing conditional relationships, rather than the observation of conditional relationships being part of Satipatthana. Victoria says, I have an easier time meditating when I hear rain or the sounds of a forest. Is it unwise to depend on listening to nature sounds on technology when I'm not outdoors? I'd do both. If I was you, I'd probably do both. If you find it helpful, well, then when you feel like you need a bit of extra help in your meditation, then I think it's okay. But also do periods of meditation without it. So don't rely on it, but using it occasionally, I think is relatively okay. That said, if you find natural sounds helps your meditation, maybe you should actually go meditate in nature from time to time. But we also need to break this idea that sounds of nature are good and sounds of non-nature are bad. All sounds are neither good nor bad. All sounds are simply part of nature. So actually the traffic noise from outside, from the road outside, that's also a natural sound. It's not really any different from the sound of the rain. Your neighbor yelling at their dogs, that's also a natural sound, just like the sounds of the forest. So in the forest, it's deer scampering through the underbrush and birds yelling in the trees. In the city, it's your neighbor's dog rooting through your backyard while your neighbor yells at them. Like it's all the same. We pretend that these are somehow different things, but they're not. Sound of the rainfall, sound of the traffic, it's all the same. It's not like one is agitating and the other is soothing. They're all just part of nature. So when we stop making these discriminations, when we stop making these distinctions, then the mind can be peaceful whether you're in the city or in the forest. Philos Eternal says, if your mind tends to become dull or sleepy after 10 to 20 minutes of meditation, what should I do? Sit up straight, open your eyes. It's amazing what a big difference this makes. Usually when people say their mind gets dull after 20 minutes of meditation, you look at them meditating and they're like, and it's like, open your eyes, sit up straight. And it's like, oh, I feel awake and alert again. Oh, that was easy. So sit up straight, open your eyes, makes a big difference. Think about death. That also makes a big difference. Ponder the futility of samsaric existence. That also can help. Do chanting. That also helps tremendously. Do standing meditation. Meditate standing up. Or do walking meditation. Hard to fall asleep when you're walking. Use a different meditation method. Often sleepiness during meditation is just a sign that you're not really interested in the method that you're trying to use. So use a different method, one that's more interesting to you. Those are some recommendations. And Philos Eternal says, I don't like keeping eyes open. More distractions, plus they don't help avoid the sleepiness. Eyelids start to get heavy. So open your eyes wider then. So you say you're having a hard time with sleepiness, but also that you're not willing to use one of the main ways of dealing with sleepiness during meditation, which is meditating with your eyes open. So you don't like keeping your eyes open. Well, would you rather meditate in a way that you don't like, or would you rather meditate in a different way that you don't like, namely falling asleep? It's better to meditate with your eyes open and stay awake than to close your eyes and fall asleep. So if you don't like keeping your eyes open, well, then do standing meditation. You can close your eyes while standing up. So stand up, close your eyes, do meditation in the standing position. Ryan says, what does it mean to have developed goodness? Well, in a Buddhist context, if I were to talk about developed goodness, I would probably talk about cultivating an attitude of harmlessness, an attitude of renunciation. So the basic principles of samma sankappa, harmlessness and renunciation. So then based upon the attitude of harmlessness and renunciation, then that manifests through acting and speaking in ways that cause no harm to anyone, and which are based upon relinquishment and generosity rather than on craving and attachment. And it also then leads to cultivating the corresponding mind states of non-attachment, of renunciation, of contentment, of joy, of kindness, of compassion. So all of that then will express itself through action. So we do actions of kindness, of renunciation, and then that helps us cultivate mind states of kindness and renunciation, which then helps us cultivate actions of kindness and renunciation, and so on. So then one who has developed goodness then is someone who's been practicing in this way for long enough that it becomes the natural habit of their mind. Someone who's been really sincerely practicing in this way for years, they get to a point where even the thought of harming another being just doesn't appear in their mind. It's just literally unthinkable. The thought of saying something deliberately cruel or mean to somebody else, it just doesn't occur to them. Their mind just doesn't go there because they've trained their mind to just never go in a harmful direction. This is what I would call developed goodness. And that's the last question from online. So I think we might go ahead and conclude at this time. So if you have more questions, you can save them and submit them to next week's monk chat. But for now, we can conclude the session with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you all next time.